food that I had acquired and began to search the ship. I kept coming across more corpses along each corridor. Many of them looked like they had their stomachs ripped open. It was beginning to get dark, and I was starting to get worried that everyone else on board was dead. I rounded a corner and my bladder let loose as a gun was pointed in my face. I stood there shaking as one of the crew gazed at me for a few moments. He put the gun away before rushing off and leaving me standing there alone. It took me a while to gather my senses, and by this time it was completely dark. I had heard distant gunshots in the direction the crew member had run and wondered what he had shot. I was thrown to my feet as a deafening crash rocked the ship. I ran to the side and gazed out at an enormous lump of ice which we must have crashed into. Lumps of ice began to crash down beside me and I had to move away to avoid being hit. I watched the piece of ice disappear off into the distance and wondered how bad the damage was. I heard a noise behind me and was instantly relieved to see my father. I began rushing towards him but stopped after seeing his clothes were covered in blood. His eyes locked on mine and I began to shrink back as his gaze was that of an animal and not a human. He let out a guttural growl and then began to charge at me. I felt my bladder release once again as I awaited my death. My father suddenly went flying backwards and I turned around to discover the same crew member from earlier still clutching the gun. He looked at me for a few moments and told me to follow him. He told me his name was Arthur and that he was desperately trying to find his son who was missing. He was moving very quickly and I was barely able to keep pace. He was peeking around every corner and we walked by dozens of corpses. We eventually reached an area with a large number of survivors. Some were attempting to lower the lifeboats while the others were trying to fight off the other passengers who seemed to want to eat them. Our lifeboat was the last to be lowered, and in the process of trying to get in, we were overrun by the infected. Arthur immediately began firing off and taking out as many as he could, ensuring that everyone got into the lifeboat safely. In the midst of it all, we heard a boy screaming from nearby. I ran with Arthur to investigate, and immediately we both knew who it was. It was his son. Arthur told me to grab his hand and run back to the lifeboats. He said he would hold them off and meet us there. As we were running, I heard the screams of Arthur as he was torn to pieces. He had saved us but lost his life in the process. They managed to get the last lifeboat down and evacuated the last of us remaining survivors. Our lifeboat was moving away from the ship and I could see dozens of the passengers rushing backwards and forwards just attacking each other. The ship had begun to sink beneath the waves and most of the people were at the back of the ship. I turned away as I didn't want to see any more of this. We were rescued by ships a few hours later, and I found out my mother had survived on another lifeboat and we tearfully reunited. The hug we shared felt like it lasted for hours. As I was climbing the steps to the ship, I thought about Arthur and his sacrifice to save his son. He was the type of man who would do anything for the ones that he loved, and I will remember him forever.